We'll reach out on the Boardwalk Honda hotline now to the Flyers beat writer. That's Sam Carchidi from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Sam's going to be in our area, by the way. He and Lou Nolan, they wrote a book together, If These Walls Could Talk, and they're going to be at Preps Pizza on the Boardwalk. That's 10th Street in Ocean City, 6 until 9:30 in the evening. That's Thursday, July the 19th. Sam, how are you, my friend?
Good afternoon. How you doing, Pete?
We're doing well, and we're excited that you're coming down with that book on the 19th, and we're also excited to be talking Flyers news, Sam. I'll tell you what, everybody's talking LeBron this, and where's LeBron going to go, and Ron Hextall's whammo, mic drop. I mean, what a move to get James Van Riemsdyk. Did you see that coming?
I thought they'd be interested, but I thought that Van Riemsdyk would probably go somewhere else, if I'm being totally honest. I know he'd always talked about the Rangers, and that was his team growing up, and I thought he might go there. And I also know that Paul Holmgren, thought he was too soft of a player his first time here, but to Hextall and Holmgren's credit, they made an early pitch to Van Riemsdyk, and he bought in. As you know, he was the second highest paid free agent on the market. Only John Tavares got more. JVR's cap hit is $7 million a year, so they took a little bit of a gamble, but it's a 5-year deal, not a 7-year deal. It's the most they could have given, but he's going to be 34 when the contract is up, so it's not like he's going to be 38 or 39, something like that. So, did they overpay? Probably, but you do have to overpay nowadays to get a 36 goal scorer, and that's what they did. And I think it gives them two really dynamic lines. And the other thing, and this hasn't brought up that much since he signed, is that it's going to really help the power play. He'll probably play, I would guess, on the second power play unit. He could play on the first, but either way, it gives them two solid power play units now, which they did not have last season, as you know.
Sam Carchidi with us talking Flyers hockey. And yes, James Van Riemsdyk coming to the Philadelphia Flyers on that free agent deal. They now have a legitimate left wing, too. There'd been a hole at left wing, as you know. In fact, that's why they moved Claude Giroux from center to left wing. My question for you, Sam, is how do you think the lines then shake up? Van Riemsdyk top line, second line? How do you think that breaks down?
I think it'll be on the second line. It was interesting that Ron Hextall, without any prodding, brought up the fact that there's a possibility that Claude Giroux could move back into the middle, but he kind of backtracked on that later on in the interview. And I think the feeling is that they love the chemistry that Sean Couturier had with Claude Giroux, and I think if everybody's healthy, I think that's the way it's going to start. I think it's going to start with Couturier in the middle, Giroux on the left, and to my way of thinking, I don't know how you can not have Travis Konecny on the top line. He was just explosive. He was tremendous when he was there. He did not play there in the playoffs and late in the season, but I'd have to go back, but I think he had something like 40-some points in 40 games on that line. So to get the most out of everybody, I think that's the best bet for the top line. I see JVR on the second line with Nolan Patrick and Jake Voracek. And then the third line, now you have Lindblom, who, struggled offensively. He wasn't able to finish, but I think he'll be much better in his third year. And I think dropping him down will put less pressure on him. You'll have him on the left wing on the third line, Wayne Simmonds on the right wing, and center right now. If you were starting the season tomorrow, it would probably be Scott Lawton, but there's going to be a battle. There's 6 guys that are going to battle for the third and fourth spot down the middle, and Lawton is one of them. Morgan Frost is also a very interesting name, and before they made this deal, I think it was a long shot. I still think it's a long shot that Frost makes the team, but I think his chances have improved slightly because they did not go out and sign a third line center. And Morgan Frost, his chances, as I said, it's a long shot, but if he's impressive in camp, don't be surprised if they give him at least a 9-game look-see before sending him back to junior, or maybe, he's good enough and he ends up staying here. So a lot of interesting possibilities for the Flyers, in training camp in September.
Right, that 9-game look-see from Morgan Frost is an option available to them. Sam Carchidi's with us, Flyers beat writer from the Inquirer, at Broad Street Bull is his Twitter handle. Sam, we had Ron Hextall on Tuesday for about 5 or 8 minutes to close the show, and I brought up Morgan Frost, and he chuckled a little and said, I think it's funny how many people want to bring him up immediately when they've never seen him play a game. And I threw in, I said, well, YouTube, Hexy, YouTube. And he says, that's just the highlights. You know, so it was like a little counter back and forth with Ron Hextall. I did ask him, Sam, about, because I saw your colleague Mike Sealski describe and take a stance that maybe JVR wouldn't be as successful here because of the style the Flyers play, that Toronto kind of played fast break hockey, and that's why his numbers were so good. But Hextall told us they see him as a 20, 25, 30-goal scorer, no problem.
Yeah, he told us in our press conference that he expected a 30-goal season from him. As you know, he scored 36 last year to get 29 the year before. Scores a lot of goals on the power play, too. So, you know, I think he's matured. His game has matured. And he talked about this a little bit, the press conference we had with JVR. He talked about just playing in key situations, giving a lot more responsibility with Toronto in his 6 years there than he had with the Flyers. So, you know, you're going to see a different player, a guy who doesn't panic around the net, gets a lot of his goals right around the net area, and surprisingly has good speed for somebody his size. I'll never forget this first time here. I'm not saying he's as fast now as he was then, but in the playoffs against Boston, he must have had 5 or 6 breakaways in one game. He was just fleet of foot. You don't expect that from a guy. He's now 6'3", 217. I don't think he weighed that much then, but he's got deceptive speed. He's going to help them in a lot of areas. There's no question about it.
How do you think JVR's arrival impacts Wayne Simmonds? Because we asked Hextall about Simmonds, and he said, well, Wayne Simmonds is a Flyer. We hope he continues to be a Flyer. You know, the Hexy speak that he said, you know, as they try to work out a deal. Do you think Wayne Simmonds stays here?
I think he does. I think if he didn't get hurt, I think he would have been traded. Just because, and nothing against Wayne Simmonds, he's a great player and he's a warrior and he is a team leader. But I just think that just from knowing Hextall and how he operates, I think he'd rather trade him a little sooner than later, if you know what I mean. I mean, he'll be 31, close to 31 when his contract expires at the end of next year. And you have to think he'll be going on the downside. So I think if he didn't get hurt, if there weren't questions about how healthy he'll be this year, when I say questions, I think questions from the other teams, I think they would have gotten a lot more for him. I think they would have gotten a first-round pick and a real high-quality prospect. Now I don't think you're going to get that simply because the unknown. I mean, here's a guy who had the core muscle surgery, and we all know how long it took Claude Giroux to recover from a similar surgery. It took him almost a full year. I mean, he had 56, 58 points a couple years ago. This year he had 102. So you can see that it took him a while before he looked like himself, before he had that second gear. Will that happen with Wayne Simmonds? There's no way of knowing. Everybody's body reacts differently. Jamie Benn, I always talk about Jamie Benn. He had the similar surgery. Of course, he's a star with Dallas, and this was several years ago. He had the surgery, and he came back, and he had an MVP year. So it didn't affect him that much. He was able to recover right away. And it's not like a knock on Giroux or Gossesbear or anybody else that's had the surgery and it takes them more time to recover. It's just the way it is. Everybody's body is different. The surgery affects people in different ways. And to me, we just don't know. I mean, Hextall says that Simmonds will be 100%, you know, in September when training camp starts, but he really has no idea. I mean, he's hoping for the best. But to answer your question, I think because of the uncertainty, I don't think you're going to get the trade value that you may have gotten before, you know, he had the surgery. So I think he's here. If the Flyers are in a playoff race, which they certainly should be at the deadline this year, then he's going to have an interesting choice. Do you trade Wayne Simmonds? Probably not. But if you're a bubble team, maybe you do trade him and if he's playing well and you get a lot for him. So some interesting options for Ron Hextall, but my gut is that he will be here for this season. And Hextall actually said the other day that they want to start talking to his agent about an extension. And so we'll see how that plays out.
And that you talking about him possibly getting moved does remind me about the fact that the JVR deal doesn't have a no trade clause, no move, or any of that stuff that Giroux had, or some of the restrictions that come on the contract. So it sounds like the Hextall method moving forward is to not get himself tied down.
Yeah, no question about it. That's a smart way to operate, and kudos to him for getting that. Wayne Simmonds does have a partial no trade contract. I believe there are 10 teams he cannot get traded to. Which limits what you can do. If you're a general manager, you don't want to have those limitations. So, that makes James Van Riemsdyk's contract even better from the Flyers' perspective. But, there's no question. They paid a lot for him. But as I said before, to get a 36-goal scorer, you have to pay. You have to be willing to pay. And to Hextall's credit, he stepped up to the plate.
Final two questions, Sam. Tell us about this free agent defenseman they picked up yesterday, Christian Folin, and the deal that they got on him as far as money-wise. It looks like Hexie also playing the numbers pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. He's a right-handed defenseman, a stay-at-home type who he was undrafted, and he was part of a college team that won the Hockey East title. I guess it was in 2010. The Flyers were in on him then, but he signed instead with Minnesota, and spent 3 years with the Wild, and then went to the Kings. And I'm sure Hextall and Dean Lombardi, who now works for the Flyers, but of course used to work for the Kings, I'm sure Hextall picked his brain, and they know what they're getting. They're getting a stay-at-home guy who plays solid defense. He's been a plus player almost his whole career. As I said, he's played parts of 4 NHL seasons. And to me, he's a depth signing. What it says is the Flyers don't think Phil Myers is going to be ready this year. Myers is also a right-handed shot, as is Folin. So, and it's a 1-year deal, $800,000. In essence, he takes the place of a Brandon Manning, who played a lot last year because of injuries, and Manning just signed with the Blackhawks for an annual cap hit of $2.25 million for 2 years. So, Hextall did well to get somebody for $800,000. And I think what this says is that they expect Travis Sanheim to be one of the top 6 this year. He wasn't, of course, at the beginning of last year. And Folin will be he's a good fallback guy. I think it was a good signing. It wasn't the sexy signing that some people wanted. But to Hextall's credit, again, he's waiting for some of these young guys. He's going to have Phil Myers possibly ready midway through this year, certainly next year. And by that time, Sam Moran will also be ready. So, he didn't want to sign a guy long-term and block one of these young guys. He's building from within, and you have to like his strategy. And the other thing is it saves. When you can build from within, as you know, Pete, you don't have to pay the big salaries for the first few years, and that helps you with the cap. And as a result, he still has some cap money available now. And keep that in mind. Right now they have, I think, about $13 million in cap space. They still have to sign 3 or 4 more guys, depending on whether they carry a 22-man roster or a 23. But they still will have some significant cap space moving forward. And keep that in the back of your mind, because when it's the trade deadline this year and you want to add somebody, this is a luxury that Hextall has not had in the past,
right?
And he will now. So that'll help them this year, and they could get a marquee guy at the trade deadline this season.
Sam Carchidi with us, Flyers beat reporter. Well, tell us about the book, Sam. You're going to be down here. Let's see. That date again is July the 19th. It's a couple weeks from Thursday, July 19th. You and Lou Nolan. The book is If These Walls Could Talk. Tell us where you'll be at Preps Pizza. Tell us the details, the time, the book, all that stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we're excited about it because I did a book several years ago with Bill Camel, the late, great broadcaster. We did one back then on the boardwalk in Ocean City. We did it at Atlantic Books, and which unfortunately has closed since then. But we had, probably our best book signing ever. I mean, we had hundreds of people at that one, and people down the shore love Bill Camel, and I think people down the shore will love Lou Nolan. So the book is all about Lou Nolan's stories in his 50-plus year history with the Flyers. For people who don't know, Lou has been the Flyers public address announcer forever, basically. He started as the PA announcer in 1972, but he started working for the team in their first year in 1967. So he's been with the Flyers since their inception, and he's the only person who has worked for the Flyers and is still there from the beginning. And he has story after story after story. So we had a great time writing the book, and a lot of anecdotes about him and Ed Snyder and different personalities on the Flyers throughout the years. It covers a wide range of people from Bernie Parent all the way up to Ivan Provorov. We always say from Parent to Provorov and everybody in between. So I had a great time doing it, and Lou and I had a blast doing it. And we'll be at Ocean City on the boardwalk at Preps Pizza. They have great pizza, great salads there. So stop by, have dinner, and stop by and talk hockey. We'll be there on July 19th. It's a Thursday, which is family night on the boardwalk in Ocean City. And I think you mentioned we'll be there from 6 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. and really looking forward to it.
Sam Carchidi with us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sam, we appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. We know we'll talk to you again to talk a little Flyers hockey. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Pete. Have a good one.